So we're discussing the topic of a GPU. Now, GPU stands for graphical processing unit. The reason why people originally had and brought graphical processing units is because when you're playing video games, they have to display a lot of rich graphical data. For example, you may have a tree in your game. The tree would consist of multiple little segments, like it would consist of branches, each with leaves. And the complexity at some point reaches what are called vertices. So that's individual points of the tree which have to be displayed onto the screen. So at some point it reaches vertices. Now, vertices are represented generally in 3D as three separate numbers. And what GPUs enabled games to do at the time was process all of these three numbers at once in what's called a vector. And they didn't only do this for one set of three numbers, they did this for every set of three numbers that was used to represent that tree and everything else in the game. And since games tend to have a lot more than just a tree, they could have non-playable characters, they could have all sorts of different things on the screen all at once, gamers needed more and more advanced hardware, like graphical processing units, to display all the things on the screen at once. Now, what this meant was that, well, what a GPU is it's just like a normal number processing unit, but it has multiple processing units inside of it. So, and it could have thousands, like an NVIDIA 4090 has about 16,000 number processing units inside of it. What that means is that every frame of the game, you could have a large set of these numbers go in and get all processed at once by individual processing units. They didn't have to wait for one central processing unit to process them one at a time. So if you were running on a normal CPU, you would have first one being processed and then put onto the screen. Then you would have the next one being processed and then put onto the screen. However, a GPU allowed for everything to be processed at once, and so you didn't have to wait. What this meant was that what we had ultimately, after decades of development, was this piece of hardware which could process multiple numbers at once. And this isn't just useful for applications like gaming, but let's take the example of something like a large language model. In a large language model, we just have a bunch of numbers, like 1, 2, and 3, all of which are used to predict what the next word will be in a sequence of words. And large language models tend to have something like 70 billion numbers inside of them, 70 billion parameters. And it would take a very long time for one single processing unit to go through each of these numbers and do a computation with them. So we need hardware acceleration. So better hardware, like a GPU, which can take not just one number, but a batch of these numbers and process them all together at once. So we don't have to wait for eternity for one processing unit to go through all 70 billion numbers at once.